Here's a truth most people never want to hear. People don't regret hurting you when you're crying. They don't regret it when you're begging. They don't even regret it when you're explaining yourself for the 10th time, hoping they'll finally understand. They regret it when you go quiet. Not the dramatic kind of silence, not the angry door-slamming kind, but the calm, unsettling silence that shows up after a short, careless message and no reply. That's the moment something shifts. Because your pain never took their power away. Your silence did. Think about it. When you react, you're still connected. When you argue, you're still available. When you chase closure, you're still playing the game. But when you stop responding, stop reacting, stop reaching, they lose something they didn't realize they were relying on: access to you. And suddenly, the questions start creeping in. Why aren't they answering? Why aren't they angry? Why aren't they trying anymore? That's when regret is born. Not from guilt, but from loss of control. Most people believe silence is weakness. They think staying quiet means you lost the argument. But in reality, silence is often the first moment you win your freedom. Because silence forces people to sit alone with their own behavior. No distractions, no reactions to blame, no emotional explosion to justify what they did. And that's uncomfortable. There's a reason calm terrifies people who thrive on chaos. Your anger made them feel powerful. Your silence makes them face themselves. This isn't about being cold. It's not about playing psychological games. It's about realizing a hard truth most adults learn too late. You don't owe everyone a reaction. You don't owe everyone an explanation. And you definitely don't owe your peace to someone who already showed you who they are. In this video, we're going to break down the silent behaviors that change everything. Not because you're trying to hurt anyone, but because you finally stopped hurting yourself. Stay with me, because once you understand this, silence will never feel weak again. Behavior 1. You observe, but you don't react. There is a quiet kind of power that most people never develop. Not the power to dominate, not the power to win arguments, but the power to stay still when someone is trying desperately to pull you into chaos. When someone attacks you with anger, their goal is simple. They want a reaction. They want proof that they still have access to your emotions. So they provoke, they raise their voice, they twist your words. They push buttons they already memorized long ago. And most people fall for it. They react, they defend, they explode. But the moment you don't, something interesting happens. When you refuse to strike back, their anger has nowhere to land. When you don't take the bait, their drama starts looking strange, even to themselves. And when you stay calm, their behavior suddenly stands exposed, naked and uncomfortable. Here's the part no one tells you. Your reaction is the cover they hide behind. As long as you explode, they can say, "See, they're the problem." As long as you argue, they can pretend it's mutual. But when you stay silent and composed, that cover disappears. Now it's just them. Their tone, their aggression, their lack of control. And that's terrifying for someone who lives off emotional leverage. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. They called it mastery of reaction. Not suppressing emotions, but choosing which ones deserve your energy. Because when you control your reaction, you control the entire situation. You don't have to prove you're right. You don't have to correct them. You don't even have to explain yourself. Your calm becomes the verdict they can't argue with. And here's the irony. You're not doing anything to them. You're simply doing something for yourself. By observing instead of reacting, you step out of the emotional battlefield. You stop bleeding for free. You stop feeding someone else's instability with your peace. And the moment they realize they can't move you anymore, that's the moment their power over you ends. Silence isn't passive, it's precision. And calm, Calm is the loudest message you'll ever send without saying a word. Behavior 2. You stop arguing and you detach. One day, something quiet but irreversible happens. You stop explaining yourself. Not because you're wrong, not because you ran out of words, but because you finally see the truth you've been avoiding. They were never trying to understand you in the first place. Think about how many times you repeated yourself, changed your tone, chose softer words, brought evidence, apologized for things that weren't even yours to carry, and still nothing changed. That's because arguments like these were never conversations. They were power struggles. As long as you stayed in the debate, they had someone to push against, someone to blame, someone to drain. So when you detach, something unsettling happens on their side. They lose the opponent. They lose the emotional supply. They lose the story where they get to be the victim and the judge at the same time. And in that empty space, consequences finally appear. Most people think walking away means you lost, but that belief comes from ego, not wisdom. The Stoics had a different rule. Not every battle is worth fighting. Some battles cost more than they could ever give back. Detachment isn't indifference, it's protection. You don't leave because you don't care. You leave because you care enough about your mind to stop poisoning it. And here's the part that stings them the most. When you detach, they're forced to sit alone with what they created. No explanations to twist. No reactions to weaponize. No emotional labor to lean on. Just silence and accountability. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't win the argument. You didn't prove your point. You did something far more threatening. You chose peace over ego. And once you do that, there's no argument left to return to. Behavior 3, you choose distance over confrontation. There's a moment when you realize words aren't the problem anymore. Access is. So instead of arguing, explaining, or confronting, you do something far quieter and far more powerful. You create distance. Not the dramatic kind. No speeches, no ultimatums, no emotional goodbye. You simply start replying a little slower. You stop rushing to be available. You choose your time, your energy, your peace, on purpose. And slowly you pull back. Distance works because it reveals truths that conversations can hide. When you're always present, people take you for granted. When you're always explaining, they never have to reflect. But when you step back, the noise disappears. Now there's space, and in that space, reality speaks. They start to feel it, the absence of your attention, the absence of your effort, the absence of the energy you used to give freely, and confusion sets in. Why aren't they responding like before? Why aren't they trying to fix this? What changed? What changed is that you stopped overextending yourself for someone and never protected you in return. Here's the uncomfortable truth. People often don't recognize your value while they have constant access to you. They recognize it when access is gone. Distance removes the illusion of replaceability. It shows what your presence was actually holding together. And when they lose the ability to reach you whenever they want, something hits them hard. You were never as easy to replace as they assumed. You didn't punish them. You didn't confront them. You didn't demand respect. You simply reclaimed your energy. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that distance isn't cruelty, it's clarity. Because the quieter you become, the louder the absence feels, and the farther you step back, the more clearly your worth is seen. Distance doesn't argue, it doesn't beg, it doesn't explain, it reveals. And once that truth is revealed, it can't be unseen. Behavior 4. You stay kind when they expect you to explode. There's a kind of silence that unsettles people more than anger ever could. It's not when you block them. It's not when you insult them. It's not even when you disappear without a word. It's when you stay calm and kind. While they're waiting for you to lose control, they push you, they provoke, they test your limits, hoping for an outburst they can point to and say, "See, that's the real problem." Because an explosion gives them an escape. It shifts the spotlight. It lets them rewrite the story. But you don't give them that gift. You speak clearly. You speak less. You don't curse. You don't attack. You don't stab back with sharper words. You hold your ground quietly. And that's when something powerful happens. Your calm becomes a mirror. It reflects their instability without saying a single accusation. When two people scream, it's easy to blame both sides. But when one remains composed and the other unravels, the truth becomes visible to everyone. This is where most people get it wrong. They think kindness in moments like this is weakness. It's not. This kind of kindness is discipline. It's restraint. It's control. The Stoics believed dignity was a weapon. Not because it wounds others, but because it protects you from becoming what you despise. Anyone can lash out. Anyone can insult. Anyone can burn everything down in the name of being honest. But staying kind under pressure, that takes strength most people never build. And here's the part that hits them hardest. When you remain calm, they lose every excuse to blame you. When you stay respectful, their narrative collapses. You don't teach them with lectures. You teach them by refusing to lower yourself. You don't match their chaos. You don't play their game. You simply show, without words, "I'm still myself." You're the one who needs to look in the mirror. That's not weakness. That's power with discipline. And discipline in Stoic philosophy is what separates dignity from regret. Behavior 5. You let life deliver the justice. There's a harsh truth most people learn too late in life. Revenge feels powerful until it drains you dry. At first, it feels justified. You replay what they did. You imagine the perfect comeback. You wait for the moment karma finally hits them so you can feel relieved. But quietly, something else is happening. Your energy stays tied to them. Your thoughts circle around them. Your peace depends on whether they've paid enough yet. And without realizing it, the person who hurt you is still controlling your mind. Stoic philosophy asks a cold but honest question. Why are you giving someone who disrespected you one more day of your attention? Here's the shift that changes everything. You stop monitoring their downfall. You stop checking whether life has punished them yet. You stop hoping for visible karma. Not because they don't deserve consequences, but because you deserve peace. So instead of chasing justice, you step aside and let life handle it. Time exposes what arguments never could. Patterns catch up to people. Character reveals itself. Manipulative people lose trust. Exploitative people lose allies. Those who destroy relationships eventually find themselves surrounded by emptiness. You don't need to be their judge. Life already runs a far more precise court than your anger ever could. And here's the irony most people miss. When you release the need to punish, you break the last chain binding you to them. Silence here isn't surrender, it's sovereignty. It's you saying, "I refuse to sacrifice another minute of peace just to see if you're suffering." While you rebuild, grow, and move forward, they remain stuck, repeating the same behaviors and facing the same outcomes. That's not revenge. That's consequence. The Stoics never believed everyone suddenly becomes good, but they understood something wiser. No one escapes the results of who they are. You walk away. You reclaim your energy. You let life do what it does best. And in the end, the justice delivered by time is always quieter and far more ruthless than anything you could ever plan. Behavior 6. You choose peace over people-pleasing. There's a loss that scares some people more than you walking away. It's the moment they realize you no longer need their approval. For a long time, your decisions were filtered through one quiet fear. Are they upset with me? Do they think I'm cold? Did I say the wrong thing? So you adjusted. You softened yourself. You swallowed disrespect just to keep the peace. But the peace you were keeping wasn't yours. It cost you sleep. It cost you dignity. It cost you the ability to be honest without apologizing for existing. Then one day, something breaks. Not because you became numb, but because you became tired. Deeply tired. Tired of shrinking to be liked. Tired of explaining yourself to people who benefited from misunderstanding you. Tired of trading your inner calm for temporary approval. So you start asking better questions. Does this protect my peace? If I say yes, can I still respect myself tomorrow? Am I living my life or following someone else's script? When you begin answering those honestly, the dynamic shifts. People who controlled you through disappointment feel uneasy. The silent treatments stop working. The guilt no longer pulls you back. And that's when manipulators panic. Because boundaries remove leverage. They can't pull you with approval anymore. They can't push you with disapproval either. You stay calm. They get upset. You accept it. Not out of coldness, but clarity. Here's the irony. The moment you stop trying to please everyone, you start attracting the right people. People with depth don't ask you to abandon yourself. People with integrity respect boundaries. People who truly care don't require you to perform for their comfort. The Stoics understood this well. Peace isn't a luxury, it's a standard. You accept losing relationships built on dependency. You stop begging for permission to be yourself. And in doing so, those who once exploited your kindness finally realize they lost something they were never entitled to keep. Behavior 7, you become harder to read, harder to reach. There's a silence that doesn't just create regret, it creates fear. Not because you're playing games, not because you're trying to look mysterious, but because you've changed in a way they can no longer access. You react less. You explain less. You stop narrating your inner world to people who never protected it. And without any announcement, you become quieter, more grounded, more private, more unreachable in a way that unsettles those who once felt certain they knew you. Before, you were predictable. They knew which buttons to press. They knew how to pull a reaction, a defense, an apology. But now, they don't. They start asking questions they never expected to ask. Why aren't they reacting anymore? Why don't they explain themselves? What are they thinking now? And the most uncomfortable part is this. You give them no answers. Not out of cruelty, out of growth. Because you finally understand something essential. Access to you is a privilege, not a right. Your silence isn't emptiness, it's depth. It comes from reflection, from boundaries, from the quiet confidence of someone who no longer needs to be seen to feel real. The Stoics believed that mystery born from discipline is strength, not hiding, but restraint. Not distance for control, but distance for clarity. And here's what truly unsettles them. You're not bitter. You're not resentful. You're not trying to prove anything. You simply outgrew the version of yourself they mistreated. They underestimated your capacity to evolve. They assumed you would always be available, explainable, reachable. They were wrong. And now they're left facing a truth that lingers long after you've moved on. You became someone they can no longer read, no longer control, no longer reach. That isn't revenge. That's growth. And growth, when it happens quietly, is the most permanent kind of goodbye. Unknown Stoicism was never meant to turn you into stone. It doesn't teach you to feel nothing. It teaches you to master yourself, to know what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Silence in Stoic philosophy is not the goal. Silence is the outcome. It's what naturally happens when your mind finally understands where its attention belongs. Not everyone who hurts you deserves punishment. Not everyone who leaves deserves to be chased. And not everyone who misunderstands you deserves an explanation. That's one of the hardest lessons to accept. especially if you're someone who cared deeply, gave freely, and stayed longer than you should have. But life isn't about being understood by everyone. It's about living in alignment with who you truly are. Ask yourself honestly, are you lowering yourself to match someone who disrespected you? Are you sacrificing your dignity just to keep access to someone who already let go of you emotionally? Are you abandoning your own peace to earn approval that never really felt secure? If the answer is no, then you're not cold, you're not heartless. You're walking the same path the strongest minds in history once walked. The path of restraint, the path of clarity, the path of inner sovereignty. Your silence is not an ending, it's a beginning. The beginning of a life where your energy belongs only to what is worthy of it. Where your reactions are chosen, not stolen. Where your peace is protected, not negotiated. And if you had to learn this lesson through pain, through betrayal, disappointment, or loss, then that pain wasn't meaningless. It was the price of awakening. You didn't become distant. You became deliberate. You didn't lose people. You lost illusions. And in that quiet, grounded space you've built inside yourself, you now stand where very few ever reach, in control of your mind, in command of your peace, and finally, free. If this message spoke to you, don't let it pass in silence. Subscribe to the channel for more Stoic wisdom, calm strength, and clarity in a chaotic world. Your peace is worth protecting, and this journey is just beginning.